Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to News and Views with me, Zahira Bam Ismail. We'll now be chatting to international relations expert Donovan Williams. Donovan, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you here, Donovan. I know that you have been writing about this for a long time now and have been following this quite closely with regards to what is happening in the Palestine area. My question to you is, we have seen this UN Security Council being passed eventually after many, many times of trying and it being consistently vetoed. But what measures are actually needed to ensure that this is put into place? Because even though it's been passed, we're still seeing the fighting that is happening. So, how do we actually ensure the measures are put into place? And also, what are the measures that are needed, not just for a lasting, but for a permanent ceasefire?
Look, firstly, you have different interpretations. Well, let me not say different interpretations because you have one interpretation by the United States and its allies, and
Mm,
you have a different interpretation by others. And the U.S. Ambassador was clear, as well as the spokespersons, the White House spokesperson, the next day, particularly on security, John Kirby, that they regard the resolution as non-binding.
mm,
So by that by virtue of that, it would mean you do not need to listen to the resolution. You do not need to adhere to it, and so hence um, they have provided the the um, the confusion.
mm.
It is similar if you think about it, like the ICJ ruling,
Yes.
the provisional ruling of the ICJ, that the International Court of Justice, and we're not getting just throwing acronyms around, which had indicated there was a plausible case for genocide. But while they look at that, they give Israel a month. Humanitarian aid must be allowed. They must make certain it is. And the next day, you saw Israel issue statements and so forth and say that there are these persons in UNRWA, the Refugees
Mm,
Organization for Palestine of the UN, of the United Nations, and that then allowed the humanitarian aid not to go through. There was
yeah.
significant amount of confusion. Now it's so similar that you're
But
saying this is non-binding. So it says no, but other people say no, but it is binding. No, but it's non-binding, and you're having that allows Israel to continue its bombing campaign within the area.
But we've
So
got many political analysts saying that it is actually binding, that this is nothing short of the US looking for loopholes again to try and extricate themselves and maintain their friendship with Israel.
precisely, and it's not about the US. I don't think we should be making distinctions between the US and Israel. I think they are the same.
Mm,
I think they are the same, and and um, and there are different role players in it. Netanyahu, Biden, whichever it is. All right, but
mm,
the view of Israel is the view of the United States, and the view of the United States is the view of Israel. There may be slight shadings and whatever, but it's a definite strategy that has been used, and it's been used on the international front for many years. I'm gonna give an example that is possibly closer to home. All
mm.
right, we have held two world conferences, global conferences
Yes.
in South Africa, the UN type. So it was the World Summit on Sustainable Development, and prior to that, the World Conference Against Racism.
Mm,
I don't know if all your listeners can recall these, but these were huge conferences. And in the leads up to these conferences, there was always a question: will the United States come? Will they want they come? Because you're putting together a declaration. You have um, like negotiations about those things. And in the end, the United States never comes through. But what
mm.
they do is they get certain things in the declaration where you would try to get them to come, but cause enough confusion that afterwards, whatever is adopted is really not implementable, or you don't have enough support and agreement for it. So this is a tactic or a strategy that seems to be used quite a lot. And we and but it's not a game, because in this case you have children dying,
But
and that's the difference.
that's exactly my point. But you spoke very clearly also about this tactic that's being used. We saw it being used also at the Goa Forum with this consistent US bullying tactic of if you don't do it our way, we take away your opportunities. Or I think you rightly described it in one of your articles as the self-proclaimed rulers. And if
Yeah.
anything, we're seeing this belligerent attitude coming through. But like you're saying, now it's no longer on forums where people are unable to stand for themselves. It's actually affecting humanity. It's affecting lives of families, of children, of people in entire communities, and the obliteration of an entire community.
Look, I've been interviewed many times, and my view is the United States is a bully,
Mm.
right? And I've written that, and what you do with a bully is you bully a bully. It's as simple as that,
So,
right?
Donovan, then I need to ask you, coming in from that, you've said that South Africa, in their stance with ICJ, took very much of a similar stance, saying that, you know what, we will not step down. We are going to stand up to the bullies, even though they came in from a not as powerful a position as the rest of the countries that they stood up against. And you're right, Israel and US were seen as one. They would be complicit in the same amount of crimes because of their financial support and their consistent support of this ongoing genocide. What has been the backlash for you? Because I know that when we spoke to Minister Pandor, there has been a lot of backlash in addition to the support that South Africa has also received. But you've also been exceptionally vocal about your stance with them on media, in writing. Has there been a backlash for you on this as well?
No, no. Look, if there's a backlash, I'm totally unaware of it, and maybe I'm not. It doesn't really matter myself personally, but I think the thing is this, that South Africa itself, we are being threatened. I mean, the bill itself that went through Congress, the review of the relationship, etc., are saber rattling. But
Mm.
this is more than just. Let's not just make it about South Africa or pray forget. Myself. The Even before the ICJ, you had a situation in the Security Council that longtime allies of the American empire actually were voting and not just speaking differently. You had Japan vote for a ceasefire when the US vetoed it. Now that's significant.
Mm.
That is significant. You had the UK abstain knowing that the US would veto, etc. But you had usually China and Russia would not vote for something, they would just abstain if the US is going to veto. And you've had them now vote for something. Now these are significant geopolitical shifts that we are witnessing, and the US is not unaware of it. The significance of the Security Council, unfortunately, it's not really the resolution which has been made to be unimplementable in many ways by the US.
Mm.
But what it has done is that for the first time, the US abstained. It like realized that it was really significantly sitting alone.
So the unease of also the shift in power dynamics, we're seeing it happen right here, as you mentioned, with the many countries who were meant to be allies now actually using their own voices. Do you think this has been because of their own repercussions as a country in terms of what would happen to them at the ICJ and the ICC? Because up until this point, absolutely nobody has been able or nobody's chosen to step forward and do what needs to be done. And we've seen that being done by South Africa, who've taken an exceptionally bold stand by going to the ICJ. That change in the power dynamics of people actually now the country is now looking after their own. Do you think that has come because of stands like this, of a need to protect their own interests? Or is there actually some level of ethics still alive?
Oh, there is I mean, we are human. We are humanity. There is definitely more than just some ethics. There's ethics alive. I don't think we must
Okay.
ever tell ourselves that we don't have ethics, because that's the surest way to make certain that there isn't ethics. That what we do have, though, and this is why South Africa is quite significant, and this is why we have been singled out, and we must thank our government and the ruling party. I think they have taken it up in a way, not just going to the ICJ, but what they've done before that, what they've done afterwards is wholly, we can feel so proud. The
Absolutely.
statements that have been made by the president, and I don't want us to say just Minister Pando, because in a recent interview by Minister Pando, she indicated that it was actually Minister Lamola
Yes.
who had come up with the idea of the ICJ, but they would have been able not to do any of those things without the president's go ahead, and
I,
and we need to be grateful for that. But most importantly, um, I think that where we are, where South Africa has shown itself that it's not just taking up this matter to go to the ICJ. It has shown itself as a huge advocate for the global multilateral system and how it should work. The statements by Minister Pando to say that why would you want to punish us for using the same instruments that everyone has set up,
absolutely.
right? And that is a huge question. So similarly, if the United States, and this is what's going to happen as well, is that if you are in the Security Council and you vote differently and you get punished for that, then you must say to the United States, then why should anybody be in the Security Council? You should sit there by yourself. You
But I
should just
think
sit there by yourself.
that also looks to the UN Security Council taking a very good look at itself, because many of these rulings or these structures were put up while these imperial powers had been colonizing many of the countries that are now under, or that were meant to be under its protection. Now, all of a sudden, these very countries have their own voices and are trying to exercise it, and rightfully, as you said, being punished for exercising it separate from the US identity. My question to you is now, following where we are from the UN Security Council, what we've just seen. I know that now it's just wording and semantics that they're also trying to get past, of whether it's binding or non binding. But my question is, what measures do we actually need to put in place to ensure that we achieve not just lasting, but a permanent ceasefire? This is something that is long overdue, something that has to be done. We cannot continue watching this. Not just this complete genocide, but this forced starvation and deliberate starvation of an entire community and an obliteration of them.
Like, generally speaking, conflicts are resolved through the appointment of mediators. It sometimes it can occur where the country is in conflict, or the country in conflict will appoint its own mediator. South Africa is quite unique in that our conflict was not resolved through any appointment of any mediator. Those involved in the conflict, got together. That is the apartheid racist government, together with the political parties like the Democratic Party, the National Party, etc., which were part of it, were part of the negotiations, and the liberation movements, the African National Congress, the Pan-Africanist Congress, etc. They were part of and they did that. So that's different. That was very, very different. In other words, Israel, Hamas, Fatah, etc., they would have to say, okay, no, we want peace. We're going to sit down and do this ourselves.
Mm,
That happening has got a 0 to no chance of occurring.
mm,
You have something called the Quartet, which is led by the US, and you have the UK and France, and it could be Russia, but I stand under correction. So you have the Quartet, which is mainly led by the US, which is in charge by the UN in terms of mediating. There's been during this crisis, the UAE has played a significant role. In particular, Qatar has played a very significant role, of a mediation role, of a broker role. There have been calls, though, significantly for South Africa from other countries to
mm.
be part of the appointment of as a mediator as well. Then, of course, Israel has been saying that no, South Africa can't be one because it's biased, etc. The question is, if anyone can tell us that the United States is not biased,
Absolutely.
please show us that. They have been openly biased, and they've said, their leadership has said, they will never drop Israel, etc. But the point is that you would have to have some type of mediators being appointed to facilitate talks. It can be talks about talks and then final talks itself. Because when you say a sustainable ceasefire, you're talking about peace. Now, you've had the Oslo Accord, which gave rise to the two-state solution, which has never been worked out as a continuous state of Palestine that can be able to link itself with the West Bank and Gaza with significant loss of land. You've had settlements now. You've had a demand of the right of return, etc. You have all those things that need to be discussed. It has to be discussed for a sustainable peace. It has to be discussed by those who are directly affected. And that has to be mediated. So first and foremost, you have to have mediators. You don't have mediators.
Donovan, we are going to have to take a very quick ad break, and then we're coming back to continue our conversation with you, and we'll be back shortly. Stay tuned.
Cool.
Your spiritual companion this Ramadan.
Are you looking for a cross-border road transport company that is committed in achieving high safety standards, who is fast and efficient, and also excel in customer service? Gardi Global specializes in cross-border transport from South Africa to Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi. Gardi Global, situated at 10 Daniel Road, Benrose, Johannesburg. For inquiries, contact our trained staff on 011-614-3108 or email info@gardiglobal.co.za. Safe long haul into Africa is our business. Gardi Global Transport.
Abu Huraira narrated that he heard the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, say, "In black seed there is a healing for every disease except death." This Ramadan, experience the health benefits of this ancient blessed seed by using the Tib Black Seed range. Black seed assists the body to boost immunity, regulate blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, and act as a potent antioxidant. Experience a holistic approach to health by introducing the Tib Black Seed range into your Ramadan routine. Available in capsules, pure cold-pressed oil, and a vapor rub. Trust Tib Health Sciences for quality black seed products. For more information, visit blackseed.co.za. Available at leading pharmacies.
The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The best of you are those who feed others." This Ramadan, join Penny Appeal South Africa in changing lives through Feed Our World. Provide food packs, hot meals, and sustainable food gardens. Make it count. Visit www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573.
Alhamdulillah. Muslims in South Africa finally have access to a fully Sharia-compliant emergency medical takaful and wellness product. As an industry first, Emergivac Sharia offers up to 575,000 Rand emergency medical cover at a private hospital for you and your family. Plus, you receive 24-hour access to private ambulance evacuation, 24-hour armed response services, roadside home, and even appliance assistance services. Emergivac Sharia offers you and your family priceless emergency medical cover at a fraction of the cost of traditional private healthcare. Simply download the Emergivac app and register online or SMS Sharia to 40777. Emergivac Sharia, for when serious emergencies require seriously fast response.
Southern Africa Dawah Network is a non-profit organization striving to uplift the disadvantaged and empowering through education and dawah. Donate to the SADN centers, the M.A. Motala Islamic Center, as well as our Islamic centers in Amoti, Imtalumi, Botshabelo, and Castile. Donate your zakat and lillah today. Contact Farooq Sheikh 076-321-0650, Yusuf Mohammadi 072-259-3457, or the SADN head office 031-304-8000. Our account, Standard Bank, account number 050-856-294 for your zakat, or 050-879-790 for your lillah. Dawah through education, education through dawah, the Southern Africa Dawah Network.
You are listening to Salam Media live from our headquarters in South Africa. This is Salam Media, keeping you company this Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to News and Views. We're chatting to Donovan Williams, an international relations expert. We're currently unpacking what we saw with the UN Security Council. And Donovan, just prior to the ad break, you mentioned us needing good mediators to sit down at the table to look at something more permanent and long lasting. My question to you following on to that is, with regards to what we've been seeing with this consistent ability to be able to veto the decisions of the majority, will it also be time to relook at the structures of the UN Security Council?
Yeah, just even before I say that, but we are very far away from having any peace talks. I just want us to know that we are very, very far away. I mean, we are in a situation where we're in a situation where Israel doesn't think of the Palestinians as human beings, and
Yeah,
are
we've
just trying
seen
to
this.
accept
Yeah.
that. Then, so we are very, very, the ceasefire has to really take place. There has to be significant stopping of bombing or
So,
anything. But
and
going back to the UN, sorry.
sorry, I just want to,
Yeah.
before we come back to that question, you just mentioned that, and earlier we were talking about this two-state solution and that, and we talked about the Oslo Accord. But the thing is, that wouldn't even be on the table now because they've literally, besides the genocide, there's been a complete domicide. There's absolutely no infrastructure left. You've
Yeah.
tried to annihilate and remove any link to any form of anything being Palestinian. So I think you're right when you say that, because how do you even start those discussions when you've
Yeah.
left them with absolutely nothing?
Yeah, precisely, and of course, there's going to be. I mean, this is the sick part of how, I guess, how capital works, and that there'll be a really good reconstruction program, I guess, that will take place hopefully once the bombing stops, and you'll have Israeli companies benefiting
Mm.
from the rebuilding. But I mean, it's a horrible thought. The matter is that it's not just Gaza. The West Bank as well may not be bombed, but you're having land being taken away all the time. The occupied territories and so forth. So there's a lot of matters like that. And that's what makes it a genocide. The South African case that went to the ICJ didn't just focus on on uh, didn't just focus on the bombings that were taking place now. It gave a really
That
strong history and background of how this has occurred over these last 70 odd years. So that was quite significant. That's what helped a lot. It helped a lot of people to start to begin to understand what's going on.
absolutely. So coming back to our question, will this be the start of re-looking at the structures that have been put in place so that it is resemblant, or rather looks after every single party that's there, not just a select few?
Look, on the, I think it's with Salam I raised this. I'm one of the few people that I actually don't think there's a problem with the veto. I don't
Okay.
think I don't think you should do away with the veto. I think there should be a veto. There should be
Eh,
a veto. But I do have a problem that you have permanent members
yes.
with a veto. That if you are a permanent member with a veto, then there's no accountability.
Mm.
Whatever you do, you will still be permanent with a veto. There should be no permanent members with a veto. They could be countries with a veto, but they should be elected regularly to say, we're going to give you this greater power because or greater authority, because you're going to have greater responsibility. That you're not going to only speak from your own interest as a country, but you're going to speak on a global or regional interest. So you're going to have to put your interests aside. And then we're going to check. If you're doing that, then we will re-elect you, whatever. But if you are not, then we will elect somebody else. So that's my particular view. But let's go to your question itself. There has been many times discussions within the UN formally and outside and amongst experts in universities all over that says, is the United Nations fit for purpose? What is the problem? And it always zeroes on to the matter of, the only significant decisions that really need to be implemented are those that are made in the Security Council. And we learned yesterday there's now non-binding. And that itself is a debate, because there was a court case. I'm still researching it, so I don't want to go too much into it. But there was a court case that said that no, UN Security Council resolutions are binding. But now we are seeing that soon you're going to have no decisions in the United Nations that are binding, if it's not even Security Council. But there's also that you had Kofi Annan begin a process that in the early 2000s and so forth, to look at reform of the UN, transformation of the UN. And there were discussions of how do you expand the Security Council so as to give significant membership to Africa and South America and so forth, who don't have a real permanent membership or veto membership, etc. And there was also the aspects of that it was clear that the veto was not going to be expanded, but maybe it would. Then you would have longer terms of office and so forth. But what you also saw was that when you did that, for instance, the Africans within the African Union, the countries, they couldn't really come to agreements on who should go and who should get greater powers. Then you start to see how you compete as countries. And there you suddenly see this unity that was there, because there was a lot of unity in the beginning of the century. It then starts to dilute. So we ourselves, because it's easy just to blame the US and the other veto wielding countries, but we ourselves, it's like a veto is bad unless we have it.
Yes.
It's a bad thing, but if we've got it, then it's okay. So and that gets used a lot. But there is something as well, which we shouldn't knock the UN too much. And this is quite significant. It's a very, very old resolution. It was actually brought through by the US to the Security Council. To the General Assembly, that changed the rules. And it was back when around the time of China, Mao Zedong taking over from China, and there was this discussion that who is on the Security Council with a veto? Is it Mao Zedong's China, or isn't it the Chiang Kai-shek, which is Taiwan today? Is it them? And the US wanted to say no, it's Taiwan. It's them. It's not that. And there was a big discussion, and then there was a whole matter about and Russia kept on vetoing, etc. And then you couldn't come to an agreement in the Security Council. Now, the US brought forward and sponsored a resolution in the General Assembly called Uniting for Peace Resolution. And it essentially says that when the Security Council are vetoing itself and not being able to deal with a matter that has an impact on global security, you can pass a resolution in the General Assembly that is binding on the Security Council and on the UN for within 24 hours of the Security Council, but you must have about 2/3 of the entire assembly in agreement. So you can you can override a veto. That's the effect of it. It's never been used. It's very difficult because it will be 2/3. But so the reason I raise this is because we haven't used everything in the levers. When I was on your show, I did not, and I dare anybody else to talk about it. We didn't think about the ICJ. We were confusing the ICJ with the ICC, the International Criminal Court, and the International Court of Justice. So it means there are levers that we have not explored. And this is like another lever in that way. So even as we talk about UN reform, we need to exploit and use the institutions and the rules that are there to either show that it's limited or show that there isn't the will amongst countries, and they are the countries and their leaders are the ones doing wrong. Because right now, even and this is what is significant and why I think you've had to round our discussion, to bring it together, why you've had what is this discussions that where you have had votes where like Japan, etc. It's because of the populations are taking different views. You've had
Yes.
people in countries in Europe that have different views to their leaders, and it's
So
showing significantly.
That's it. That's it. So I think you hit the nail on the head there. We've often said that the people in power are saying one thing, but the masses have come out and said another and actually demanded another. Donovan Williams, it's been great to have you on the show. There was so much more I wanted to unpack, especially in terms of the African Union and its credibility and significance now, but we'll have to leave that for another conversation. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on News and Views.
Thank you. Cheers, bye.
That was Donovan Williams, international relations expert. It was a pleasure to have him here. We'll be taking a quick ad break and then continuing with the rest of the show.